Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into something absolutely fascinating: the rapid adoption and, well, the widespread application of blockchain technology in China.
Yeah, it's a big topic. We've got this source, an article, that really zeroes in on why blockchain is seen as so critical over there. It connects it right back to a fundamental challenge in Chinese society.
Right. So, our mission here, our goal for this deep dive is really to get past the headlines. We want to understand the core ideas of blockchain as they apply in China specifically,
Hmm.
and explore the, well, surprisingly diverse ways it's actually being used across different industries. Like right now.
And try to get a clearer picture of what this huge implementation effort really means.
Exactly. And this is where I think it gets really interesting right from the get-go. The source material, it suggests blockchain isn't just like another tech trend in China.
No, not at all. It's being actively positioned, even used as a foundational tool.
Right.
And the goal seems to be building trust, building reliability, especially in areas where that's historically been a bit tricky.
Hmm. So let's dig into that core issue then. What is it about the situation, the landscape in China, that makes blockchain, this specific technology, so uh, relevant, so strategic?
Well, the source points straight away to scale,
Mm.
just the sheer size of the country, geographically, and the enormous population. It means you've got this incredibly complex web of interactions.
Right.
Just think about how many people, how many organizations are involved in something like a supply chain, moving goods from, say, one side of the country to the other.
Yeah, multiple steps, multiple handoffs.
Yeah,
It's easy for things to get lost or for problems to creep in.
exactly. And the article argues this environment, it makes what it calls social credit formation quite difficult. It becomes prone to issues like, say, someone faking where a product came from.
Okay.
Or how do you even check that substandard goods haven't somehow slipped into the legitimate supply channels?
So even if everyone means well, the sheer complexity creates these openings, these vulnerabilities that can erode trust over time.
Precisely. And this is where that core feature of blockchain really comes into play. The source emphasizes it again and again.
Hmm.
Blockchain is extremely difficult to tamper with. You can't easily change the record once it's there.
Hmm.
And this resistance to change, this immutability, well, it's seen as a powerful way to fix that weakness, to shore up social trust by providing a record you can actually rely on.
That makes a lot of sense. If you can't always trust every single person in the chain, maybe you build a system where the tech itself enforces the trustworthiness of the record.
That's really the philosophy the article presents. And look, this isn't some slow, organic thing happening. The Chinese government has explicitly elevated blockchain.
Right.
They've designated a strategic national technology, put it right up there with AI and 5G.
That's a very clear signal, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And this national directive, well, it sparked a huge amount of activity across the board. State banks, top universities, big corporations, even city governments. They're all actively involved in blockchain development implementation.
So what kind of scale are we actually talking about in terms of real projects on the ground?
The source gives some pretty impressive numbers. Since the regulations came out in 2019, over 1,000 service applications using blockchain have been submitted.
1,000. Wow.
Yeah, and cities are really competing to be leaders here. The article mentions plans for 30 blockchain tech parks spread across 23 cities. Think major hubs: Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai.
Hangzhou, you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Hangzhou gets a special mention as being particularly active, really pushing to build out its blockchain ecosystem.
And what about the people needed for this, the talent pipeline? Are universities playing a role?
Oh, very much so. Top universities like Tsinghua, Peking, Zhejiang, they've set up dedicated blockchain courses. They've got specialized research labs,
Okay.
and they're forging direct collaborations with industry. The focus isn't just theory. It's very much about developing the skilled workforce needed for this huge practical deployment.
Okay, so we see the problem scale, complexity, hitting trust, and this big top-down strategic push. Now, for listeners who might know blockchain, mainly from, say, cryptocurrency headlines,
Mm.
maybe we should do a quick refresh, just the basics. How does this tamper-resistant digital ledger actually work?
Sure. Think of it like a digital record book, but one where the entries are incredibly secure. The core idea is the chain itself. records or blocks of data, they're linked together sequentially.
Okay.
Imagine like entries in an old school ledger or maybe a bank passbook. If you tried to go back and secretly change an old entry,
You'd mess up everything that came after it.
exactly, the subsequent calculations, the later entries, they wouldn't add up anymore. The change would stick out like a sore thumb.
Got it.
And the way blockchain creates this super secure link is using something called cryptographic hash values.
Hack values. Okay, sounds technical. How does that connect to the chain idea?
It's like creating a unique digital fingerprint for a chunk of data. A hash value is a fixed-length code generated from any data using a specific algorithm. It's really fast and easy to calculate the hash from the data.
Right.
But here's the crucial part. Change just one tiny bit of the original data, even a single letter, and the hash value changes completely. And it's practically impossible to go backwards. You can't figure out the original data just from the hash.
So it's a super sensitive summary of the data, almost impossible to fake.
Exactly. The source mentions video services use this, actually. They compare hash values to quickly check if an uploaded video is the same as an official one, without comparing the huge files directly.
Makes sense.
So in blockchain, each new block of data doesn't just contain its own information. It also contains the hash value, that unique fingerprint of the block that came right before it in the chain.
Ah, okay, so the new block points back to the old one using its fingerprint.
Precisely. Now imagine someone tries to tamper with the data in that older block.
Its hash value changes instantly because the data changed.
Right. But the next block in the chain, it's still holding the original hash value from before the tampering. The two values no longer match up.
The link is broken, and you can see immediately that something's wrong. Tampering detected.
That's it. That's what gives blockchain its tamper-evident property. Any attempt to alter a past record breaks that mathematical chain, and it gets flagged.
Okay, that covers the tamper resistance, the chaining with hashes. You also mentioned distributed ledger technology, DLT. How does spreading this ledger out add another layer of reliability, especially thinking about building trust in a complex place like China?
Right. This is key. This moves it beyond just being hard to tamper with to being highly reliable and resistant to, say, one person controlling everything or a few people colluding. Instead of one central place, like one company, one bank holding the master copy,
Yeah.
that ledger is shared. It's synchronized across lots of different independent participants.
So everyone involved has a copy, and they're all kept up to date.
Essentially, yes. The source uses that supply chain example again. Imagine cabbage, right? Instead of just the supermarket keeping its own record of where it got the cabbage, the farmer who grew it, each distributor who handled it along the way, and the supermarket that finally received it, they might all be participants. And they're all adding their own records to the same shared distributed ledger.
Okay. How does that make it more reliable than just one company keeping the books?
Because if one participant, say a distributor, tries to cheat the system, maybe they claim they received premium cabbage when they actually got the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that single fake entry won't match the entries that were independently submitted by the farmer, who recorded shipping the cheap stuff, or the supermarket, who recorded receiving the cheap stuff.
I see. So you'd need multiple people, multiple parties, to all agree to lie and coordinate their fake entries perfectly across this shared ledger.
Exactly. And even then, the source notes that things like timestamps and other metadata could potentially reveal suspicious coordination if you look closely. The sheer difficulty, the complexity of getting multiple independent parties to successfully collude and falsify synchronized records across a distributed tamper-evident ledger, that's what makes the information on it so much more trustworthy than just one entity's private database.
Right.
And this distributed validation, this shared truth, that's what's seen as particularly valuable in China for building that societal trust across different players.
Okay, got it. So tamper-evident records chained together and shared among many participants for extra reliability. Now, let's get into the specifics, the real world. The source outlines 8 main areas where this is actually being applied. What's the first big one?
Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, the first major area is financial.
Right, and that covers things like the digital yuan we've heard about.
Yes, exactly. The source clarifies the transaction records. The backbone for the digital yuan are managed by blockchain. But it also draws an important distinction. The digital yuan itself is the currency, whereas services like Alipay and WeChat Pay, those are fundamentally digital wallets or payment platforms. They're different things.
But they'll likely work together.
That's the expectation, yeah. That you'll be able to, say, load digital yuan into your existing Alipay or WeChat wallet.
So maybe not direct competitors in the way some people thought.
Not entirely, no.
Yeah.
Although the source does suggest the digital yuan is partly intended to diversify the digital payment scene by enabling banks to develop their own competitive digital wallets for the digital yuan.
Ah, it could break the stranglehold of Alipay and WeChat Pay?
It could challenge that existing duopoly, yeah. And banks would almost certainly use blockchain tech to build the kind of sophisticated financial features they'd need to compete effectively.
Interesting. So, beyond the digital yuan, what other financial uses are mentioned?
Well, the source lists quite a few. The electronic handling of checks and bills, securities trading, supply chain finance, which connects back to our earlier point, and the electronic management of insurance policies. All areas seeing active blockchain development.
Is there a really concrete example of how this is tackling a specific financial headache?
Absolutely. The source gives a really good one, small business loans. Lending to SMEs, small and medium enterprises, has traditionally been tough for banks.
Why is that?
Well, the loan amounts are often pretty small compared to the huge amount of work needed for credit checks, verification. It's labor-intensive, it's slow.
Lots of hassle for not much return on each loan.
Exactly. So this company, Shukin Technology, they built a platform. It's blockchain-based, and it integrates data from all sorts of government bodies, tax office, business registration, customs, even environmental compliance.
Right.
So banks, instead of chasing all that down, can just search the company name on this platform and get access to verified necessary info for the credit check super quickly.
That must slash the bank's workload.
Hugely. And crucially, it speeds things up for the SMEs that need the money. The source reported that by late 2020, this platform had already helped facilitate something like 850 billion yuan in loans
Wow.
to around 80,000 companies, with banks using it over 30 million times. And the blockchain part guarantees the integrity of that government data, which, the article notes, could eventually lead to using AI for risk assessment, maybe even automated loan processing.
So what's here is blockchain directly fixing a trust and information gap that was holding back lending to a really vital part of the economy.
Exactly. Creating a reliable shared data layer for SMEs.
That's a really powerful example.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. What about healthcare? That sector deals with incredibly sensitive personal data.
It certainly does. And that's why the source points out that healthcare applications almost always combine blockchain with strong encryption methods. Privacy is paramount.
Makes sense. What are the key applications?
Things like creating and securely sharing electronic medical records, facilitating record sharing between different hospitals or clinics, and also helping to prevent counterfeit drugs from getting into the system.
Are there specific examples actually running now?
Well, the source mentions a kind of future vision called the DNA wallet concept. It's forward-looking, but the idea is encrypted genetic info stored securely on a blockchain, which doctors could reference for really personalized treatments. That builds on current work with electronic records.
Okay, interesting concept. Anything more concrete today?
Yes, Zhejiang province. They're piloting, and actually expanding now, a system for consolidated healthcare payments.
Consolidated payments, how does that work?
So patients use specific apps, one called Zilifin or an Alipay mini program, and they can book appointments, yes, but also make a single payment that covers everything. Consultations, prescriptions, maybe tests, and across multiple participating hospitals in the area.
Ah, so no more lining up at different payment windows in each hospital.
Exactly. The patient records are shared securely among those participating hospitals through the system. You handle it all on your phone. It just cuts out a lot of the friction and lack of coordination you often get when dealing with multiple healthcare providers.
That sounds much smoother.
And there's another timely example the source gives: contact tracing and access control. Back in February 2020, a WeChat mini program called Churalong was rolled out.
Okay.
Visitors to buildings or neighborhoods could input their info. If they met the rules set by the building manager, they got a digital pass. The key thing, it used encrypted blockchain.
How did that help?
It meant the volunteers or guards at the entrance didn't need to directly collect and handle sensitive personal data themselves. They could just verify the pass. The system provided anonymized stats for the managers, so it leveraged blockchain for secure, verifiable data handling while trying to protect privacy in a public health situation.
Fascinating. Okay, from health data to legal matters.
Yeah.
How is blockchain being used in the judicial system?
Well, think about the sheer volume of digital evidence courts deal with now. Videos, audio files, electronic documents. It's growing all the time.
Right.
Blockchain offers a really secure, pretty low-cost way to store all that evidence. And crucially, in a way that prevents tampering or deletion. It guarantees the integrity of the evidence.
So the digital file presented in court hasn't been messed with later on.
Exactly. And beyond just storing evidence, it's also being used for digitizing and securely sharing court documents among relevant parties.
Is there a specific example?
Yes, digital evidence preservation. Since 2018, the source says, platforms have been in use where digital evidence is managed on a blockchain. It makes it securely accessible online to multiple courts. And since 2019, they've expanded this to manage records across the whole judicial process, from the start of a trial right through to execution.
So staff can track progress online.
Yeah, and they can trust that the record they're seeing is authentic. It addresses that critical trust point in the legal system. Can we rely on this digital evidence?
Okay, moving from courts to government services. What about administrative uses? Things like verifying who owns what, IDs, property.
Yeah, this is a really core application area, using blockchain to verify and certify that fundamental identity and property info. Think digital versions of your ID card, your car ownership papers, the deed to your house.
What kind of applications?
Issuing electronic certificates, building corporate credit systems, making it easier to see if a company is legit, and enabling administrative services that work across different cities.
Ah, cross-city services. That seems really important in a country where people move around a lot.
It is. And the source notes that right now, truly seamless cross-city administration is still mostly found in the big tech hubs like Beijing or Suzhou. But think about it. People move, they work in one city, live in another, interact with different local governments. It causes friction.
Yeah, bureaucracy headaches.
Exactly. So Zhejiang province, again, they're building that Zhili platform we mentioned for healthcare. They want to unify administrative procedures statewide through one app. And they started integrating Hangzhou's blockchain system, the government service chain, back in November 2019.
So what kind of things are on that chain?
Currently, the source says it manages 26 types of certificates, things like ID cards, real estate registrations, all managed on the blockchain, and they're expanding coverage. The idea is to use blockchain to solve the problem of different government databases not talking to each other or not trusting each other's data, creating a single, verified layer for critical info.
Okay, let's loop back to something really tangible, something that connects directly to that initial problem of trust you mentioned, traceability.
Yes, absolutely. This is a critical application aimed squarely at fighting counterfeit goods and ensuring consumer safety, especially with food. The main applications listed are pretty straightforward: product traceability and food traceability.
How are the big companies using this?
Well, e-commerce giants like Alibaba and JD.com, they're actively using product traceability on their platforms. It's about building consumer confidence, preventing dodgy fakes from being sold accidentally.
Right.
And for food traceability, there's an example of an infant formula maker, May. They let consumers scan a QR code on the package.
And what does that show?
It traces the whole journey where the raw materials came from, production details, transport, sales channels, and the blockchain part is key. It ensures the manufacturer themselves can't just go back later and quietly change the records from an earlier stage.
Ah, so they can't cover up a problem if one occurred during production, for example.
Exactly. Another food example, the Zheling chain system in Zhejiang, developed with Alibaba Cloud and Ant Blockchain, launched June 2020. You scan a QR code on frozen food, trace it back.
And it's not just food.
No, the source also mentions luxury goods traceability. A jewelry company called Igider started developing a blockchain system for tracking diamonds back in February 2020.
Diamonds, wow.
Yeah. And the expectation, according to the source, is that this kind of secure, tamper-evident traceability will become pretty standard, not just for things where safety is key, like food and cosmetics, but also for high-value items, where you really need to know it's authentic jewelry, luxury bags, fancy alcohol, high-end tobacco. The insight here is using blockchain to build trust directly with the consumer by making the product's history transparent and verifiable.
From baby formula to diamonds. Okay, what about transportation? How does blockchain fit in there?
Here, the focus in the source seems to be on connecting cities, especially as these big urban clusters form. The example given is a new high-speed metro line, Line 22, extending the Guangzhou Metro out toward Shenzhen. Part of it is opening soon.
Okay, faster trains. But where's the blockchain?
It's in the payment system. Alipay released an app back in January 2020. It lets you use a single QR code to pay for metro rides in 11 different cities: Shanghai, Ningbo, Hangzhou, places like that.
One QR code for multiple cities. That's convenient.
Very. And the records of all those individual rides, they're managed using blockchain. Now, Currently, the fares still go to the transit authority of the specific city where you rode,
Right.
but the long-term vision described is using blockchain to manage how the fares get allocated across these growing urban clusters, all connected by high-speed rail. So imagine seamless travel, which is one QR code nationwide, and blockchain acts as the trusted ledger to make sure the right transit operator gets paid accurately.
Okay, almost there. The seventh area, public welfare. The source mentioned issues with public trust around donations sometimes.
Yeah, this is a really sensitive area where transparency is absolutely crucial. The Ant Forest program by Ant Group gets mentioned. Now, that's not direct cash donation, right?
Yeah.
You can put your green actions, like taking public transport, into points, and Ant Group uses its own money to plant trees.
Mm-hmm.
And its success is partly because it's run by a huge, well-known company, and they're transparent about using their own revenue.
So what about traditional charities? How does blockchain help them rebuild trust?
That's where it's being directly applied. The Zhejiang Provincial Department of Finance, working with Ant Blockchain, launched China's very first platform for donation traceability using blockchain. This was back in February 2020.
How does it work? What does it track?
It tracks the entire journey of a donation. From the moment the organization receives it to when it gets transferred down to the local level, right through to how the money is spent purchasing goods, distributing aid, donors can actually follow the full path of their contribution on the platform.
Full transparency.
That's the goal. It's a direct response to past scandals or public skepticism about where donations end up. Using blockchain's transparency and immutability to build confidence, hoping that will encourage more people to give in the future because they can verify where it goes.
That's a really pointed application, targeting a specific trust deficit. Now, the source also listed digital copyright as the eighth area.
Yes, it did. It's mentioned as one of the 8 main areas being explored or applied, but the source article we had didn't really dive into specifics there. No concrete examples or further details were provided for that category.
Okay, understood. So that covers a really impressive range of applications: finance, government, healthcare, tracing food, tracking donations. What's the overall picture right now? Are these mostly just small tests, pilot programs, or are they actually, live and running?
The source seems quite clear on this. Many of these applications we've just talked about, they're already operational.
Yeah.
At various scales, yes, but they're running. These aren't just ideas on a whiteboard. They're active systems being used.
That's quite something.
It is. However, the source also adds a note of caution. It stresses that it's still relatively early days in this, well, massive nationwide rollout. Will all these specific platforms we discussed ultimately succeed, become standard? Or will some just fade away? That remains to be seen. The article definitely anticipates more platforms will emerge, and probably eventually some consolidation in the market. The successful models will scale up, others might disappear.
So lots of experimentation happening now, and we'll see what sticks.
Exactly. But the fundamental driving force, the thing pushing this huge, widespread adoption of blockchain, as the source really hammers home, it's deeply tied to China's strategic goal. That goal of improving trust, improving credit formation across this incredibly vast and complex society. It's technology being applied directly to try and solve a fundamental societal challenge.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening in? We've seen how China is really going all in on blockchain, implementing it on a massive scale.
Yeah.
And not just as, the next cool tech upgrade.
No, it's very targeted. Fundamentally being used as a tool to try and build trust, build reliability, especially in areas where complexity or, let's face it, a lack of transparency have historically been real challenges.
Yeah, from verifying where your food or even your diamonds came from to making healthcare payments simpler or even ensuring your charity donation actually gets tracked transparently. The scale and the sheer number of operational applications right now is pretty striking.
It really is.
And it does make you pause and think, doesn't it? If one of the core drivers behind such a massive, coordinated tech push in this huge, complex society is the very practical need to build and verify trust, well, what other fundamental societal challenges anywhere in the world might technology be uniquely positioned to address, maybe in ways we haven't fully explored yet?
Definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive.